from a mental health standpoint that we can all learn from each other. And that's the best thing about therapy for me is that I get to speak to my clients, and sometimes they may not know, but I learn from them as much as they learn from me. And whatever you do in life, just know that person across from you, that person next to you can learn from you as much, as we can learn from each other. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I was trying to get tongue-tied. But so that's what it comes down to. Don't have an education, or you do, or whatever it may be. This world in itself is connections in human beings. Like, we encounter each other every day. And while we're encountering each other, we're learning from each other. And that's what matters, and that's what makes change. And that starts from the home, and it goes into the community, and it goes into our workplace.
Bars. That's all I can say, bars. But yeah, like you said, learning from somebody next to you. Like I said with the STEM Plug podcast, right? Honestly, these are just genuine conversations that I'm having, and I just want to plug it in with everybody else. So is this a good conversation so far?
Yo, plug me in. Plug me in to the STEM Plug podcast.
I appreciate y'all all. How's everybody doing? Good. Hey, it's the first annual, again, EduVibe Fest. We're going to be here. We're plugging in with another amazing conversation. I'm honored. I'm honored to be in the presence of two amazing individuals, two people I can call my friends that's doing some amazing things in their spaces. And this conversation is about to be like no other, right? So we're gonna plug into another episode of the STEM Plug podcast, right? So we got my boy John Brown. We got Valencia. So we got Valencia Empower All, right? So you're doing some amazing things, with the intermission of STEAM and mental health. So I thought it would be an amazing conversation that, we have Valencia with her nonprofit Empower All, and then we also have John Brown here, a mental health therapist, right? And this is an important conversation that I feel like we all need, right? Especially being in, technical roles, even a business owner, anything, right? Mental health is important. So we really want to kind of dive in. Jay, first of all, how y'all doing tonight, right? How's everything going? How's the day been?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. It's such a vibe in the space that truly I feel like this evening is really resuscitating my heart of the break that I need. So I'm excited.
Yes. And same as well, a vibe, really great energy, a lot of really, positive power that's just sitting even in front of us, and even next to you feels good. So, and that's what matters.
We kind of met, I kind of formulated some questions that we kind of can go over. But I was like, nah, forget those questions. Let's plug in for real, right? Let's plug in for real. So let's really have a discussion, right? So first of all, Jay, you have a amazing background in the mental health field, right? Tell us a little bit how you got into, wanting to be a mental health therapist, really, being able to be there for people in their time of need. How did you even get in that space?
So really a lot of things starts, I know for myself when we were young, when I can say at 12 years old, I took a walk, and I asked God to put me in a space where I can help people. So within that journey, he put me into human services at a young age. And everything that we do is human services. Everybody that we interact with is human services. So from there, I went from there to criminal justice to therapy, and I was in a place of helping people and speaking to people. So that's how I kind of got on my journey to be a therapist.
Okay. What about you, Valencia? How did you get into the space of, now you have you could break it down to us a little bit more, right? But you have the intermission of, mental health, but within STEAM, right? How did you get into that space? inspired you to even to get to that?
Well, first, I'll be honest that I'm an elementary teacher at heart, and I ran from education. I grew up in my mother's classroom and vowed that I would never, ever go into education and put both feet in my mouth, because immediately after leaving UNCG with a degree in public relations and communications, my first job was at a school, and the principal was like, "What are you doing without an education degree? You connect well with the students." And I'm like, well, I just saw the work that my mom put in. I saw how much of her own money she spent, and I didn't want to be trapped inside the four walls of a classroom. But I followed suit, ended up in an elementary classroom. Towards the latter part of my career, the principal asked me to start the STEM program. And my husband is an engineer, and I'm like, I'll be a domestic engineer. That's called a stay-at-home wife. But anywho, and I was like, you really want me to like start STEM or STEAM? And he was like, you do it every day. And so with that, recognizing that representation matters, recognizing that our young people, our Black and brown youth and young ladies need to see someone in the space, I just, was up for the call to join in beginning the STEAM program at 2 different elementary schools. And then in that space, you really are able to see students blossom. You're able to have the freedom to make mistakes, and in actuality, you should make mistakes. Like, if it works the first time, then you did something wrong. So leaning into that and being able to tap into SEL, or that social emotional learning, really helped me to bridge together STEAM education and mental health wellness. Again, I always say I'm not a mental health therapist, but I do have the skill set to bring in that social emotional learning.
Wow. Okay. So you just brought up a great line, right? Because I actually was talking to Jay earlier. When we were talking earlier, you were talking about like, you don't have to explain this line to me, what you said a little bit more. You don't have to be a licensed mental health therapist to be a therapist. Explain that a little bit more to us.
Yeah, so within life, from childhood to as we get older, we go through like challenges and experiences. We go through growth. So a lot of time as therapists, a lot of us look at it as, okay, or I'm going to use another analogy as well, therapists or doctors or scientists. We can go even deeper, that we all know the answers all the way, but with experience and with knowledge and with growth, we may not sit down in that seat all the time and during that time, it's all the time, but during that time, but there's things that we learn and that it helps us grow as an individual. So that's why I always say from a mental health standpoint that we can all learn from each other. And that's the best thing about therapy for me, is that I get to speak to my clients, and sometimes they may not know, but I learn from them as much as they learn from me. And whatever you do in life, just know that person across from you, that person next to you can learn from you as much, can learn from you as much as we can learn from each other. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I was trying to get tongue-tied. But yeah, so that's what it comes down to. Don't have an education, or you do, or whatever it may be. This world in itself is connections in human beings. Like, we encounter each other every day. And while we're encountering each other, we're learning from each other. And that's what matters, and that's what makes change. And that starts from the home, and it goes into the community, and it goes into our workplace.
Bars. That's all I can say, bars. But yeah, like you said, learning from somebody next to you. Like I said with the STEM Plug podcast, right? Honestly, these are just genuine conversations that I'm having, and I just want to plug it in with everybody else. So is this a good conversation so far? All right, so again, if anybody has any specific questions that you might have, please text 267-701-5390. All right, Jay, so that's really plug in, right? Let's really dive in, right? So it's 2023 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's like, everybody, we going along with our life, post-COVID. COVID is over, right? But nobody really talks about like life after COVID, right? Let's plug in a little bit about that, right? From your perspective as a mental health therapist, are you seeing people Where is the, I guess, the interaction from post-COVID? Like, what is life like with clients that you have? We really want to kind of get advice from someone like you, right, on how to handle, post-COVID, right? Not just put our feelings, on the back burner, right? Because a lot of us, we get to a point where you shaking and moving, right? You doing a business, you're doing your job, family, but you putting your feelings kind of on hold, right? So let's dive in and kind of give us some information on how we should be handling post-COVID and looking at that.
So with COVID, there's also something that I guess I coined. There's a COVID mental health crisis that's post-COVID. And this has increased a couple of things. It has increased depression. It has increased anxiety. It has increased a lot for our young adults, manic episodes. So right now that is running very rampant. And a lot of us may not even realize that we're actually going through it, especially like manic episodes where you're going into like, one day you happy, one day you sad. One day you happy, one day you sad. And y'all can look up both of the bipolar episode 1 and 2. So with that is present, and we have to address that, because if we don't, it's going to send a lot of people into two things: homicidal and suicidal ideation is going to be present. And we have to figure out how we can attack that early on and now. And we're not talking about it. And then there's the financial strain as well. I'm not going to be long-winded, but with the economy, that's putting a lot of pressure on people and bringing them down and very low. And they're trying to figure out how to get out of it or get past it. So post-COVID mental health is the new epidemic. I don't know if people told you, I don't know if they want to tell you. The COVID-19 wave is here, but it's leaving. But the post-COVID mental health crisis is present, and is a stronghold that's going to try to hold people for a long time, and we have to attack it early on and now.
So Valencia, I guess question for you, right? Let's intertwine STEAM now, right? With your STEAM and hip hop and mental health. How have you seen like concepts that you're able to teach or stuff like that possibly being able to help with mental health?
Well, first, I think I want to piggyback on what John said. And in the education realm, we're seeing the learning loss. And what I like to say is COVID unmasked a lot of issues that are happening in education that have been happening for decades, right? So now we're in a place that we can talk about those things, or now we're in a place where it's almost becoming the norm to hear that somebody is diagnosed with anxiety or diagnosed with depression. And I also teach at State, right? So at NC State, I will name that the suicide rate has increased. And when we look specifically, it is in the engineering department, right? So that says a lot. So then with my push, with my organization, is pushing early exposure and pushing our young ladies and our students of color into pursuing STEM careers if it is their choice. So finding out ways that we can disrupt imposter syndrome, finding out ways where it's okay to make mistakes, finding ways to truly be vulnerable and open up with one another and be honest and having honest conversation kind of falls into the work that we do. So yes, traditionally we are STEM or STEAM. We say STEAM, we include the arts. And we know that there's this engineering design process. We know that it's an iterative process that we push and say, that's what we all do as humans. We ask, we plan, we create, we make changes, we communicate, and if you continue that circle over and over again. So what I feel that we do different than other people is like we push liberatory design. So we bring in empathy, we bring in those conversations, we sit in circle and build a community, because ultimately having that community and having somebody to advocate for you helps students to feel seen, helps students to feel like they have a sense of belonging to then tackle that mental health and disrupt that that the mentality of I can't do something.
Okay. So we have a question for the audience, and I think this is a good follow-up question, right? Someone wants to know, how do you cause transformation in someone who never had the fundamentals of the reason to live?
Ooh, that's heavy.
That's a good one.
I mean, that's
question.
a deep question.
Can you say that one more time?
How do you cause transformation in someone who never had the fundamentals of the reason to live?
Who I am as a person, also as a therapist, whoever that person asked that question, I always, and we should always, and even what I do for a living, my discipline, I'm going to start, and you should start like where you are, and so early on I talk about human interactions, so sometimes those answers, it may or may not come from a book. And it may or may not come from a person, but it will come from an interaction, what you interact with. I am not a big social media person, but whatever that interaction is or that spark, a lot of flames are out right now. And it's time that flame needs to be relit. And even within that question, there's just a flame that's just been, not a flame, but a candle that's just been sitting there for you that just need to be lit. So within your interaction, wherever that comes from, that might be a run, that might be you're taking a jog, that might be from therapy, that might be from school, that might be from mom, dad, your kids. But there's a flame that has to be lit. And once it's lit, I can almost promise you, those answers will be answered.
Okay.
I would say I would jump in on that, and I have a close friend who battled this, and what helped her is just what you said. It's like, what gets you fired up? Well, what got her fired up was the injustice and recognizing, like, we didn't just have COVID-19, but we had social unrest. So seeing things, and you get to a place where like enough is enough, where you want to join forces with someone to do something different that is truly empowering. And you have, again, I believe relationships are truly the secret sauce to all those things. So again, when I say being in community, having those relationships with people and they actually hear you, because all the times when you go to therapy, your therapist is not giving you the answer, right? It's just having that space to vent, to talk, to share out, and then you can then make a decision for yourself, like how to move forward and propel that way in a positive way.
Okay. That's dope. I guess something to piggy off that, then I want to kind of dive into this question, right? Kind of going back to, talking about kind of what you were saying about NC State, you were saying suicides dealing with engineers, right? So I guess being in those such technical roles, right? And it's just like study, or work, right? So we have another question from the audience, and I think this is a great question. Someone wants to know, can we talk about dealing with mental health when you are in spaces where you are the only one in the workplaces? So looking to build safe spaces. How can you do that when you're like the only one? So I'm guessing like you don't really have no one to even talk to. You're like the top person. So who can you talk to?
Well, I mean, I always find myself, unfortunately, as the only one. I've been in spaces like even in K-12 schooling, like whether you get identified as AIG, then typically I'm the only black girl in the space. Or when I worked in higher ed, I was the only black or the person of color, especially during like the death of George Floyd. And then they come to me and want to start, like, I speak for all black people and I have to approve the diversity statement, right? Or I'm in this PhD program. And so I tell people like we're this mini HBCU housed at a PWI. So it's like you have to find your people. Like you sit in the spaces, and I know typically DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But for me, when my heart races, it tells me DEI means do not excuse it. So you have to speak up and lean into what's uncomfortable. And then you have your people like, girl, you won't believe what just happened to me today. It's just having those affinity spaces outside of the space that you're in, but it pushes you to be bold, to truly disrupt what is happening. And it is tough. It is very tough. I'm in a space right now that I'm constantly trying to pep myself up and give myself those positive affirmations. But again, outside of that environment that you are in, I'm sure you have your people and to truly listen to like vent and get that out.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna plug something in real quick. So we got my boy John Brown right here, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us, about your organization that you just started with, Receptive Therapeutics. Tell us a little bit more about that, how you can be supportive. Some of our people in the audience.
Yes, thank you. Receptive Therapeutics will be launching this year, November 1st. I'm currently a co-founder of an organization right now. But with Receptive Therapeutics, I want to make sure that, again, like I said earlier, just meet you like where you are. And I have a lot of really great just testimonies when I, speak to my clients, and I'm more of like a motivational therapist. Trust me, I've been through the ins and out of a lot of things. I have clients that told me a lot of stuff, but with Receptive Therapeutics, we want to make sure that we meet you where you are. And within that, making sure that we can get to the goal that you have, because you have the answer. As a therapist, my job is to push you and guide you as much as I can. But you have the answer. Because sometimes a lot of people come into therapy like, okay, my therapist is going to fix my problem. I'm not going to fix your problem, but I'm going to push you towards your answer. And that's what matters. And that's with life in general. So no different like we're all here together. Your support system, and within Receptive Therapeutics, your support system is going to mean a lot. And some of our support systems is not the best, right? But from a therapeutic standpoint, I will, and also the other therapists within Receptive Therapeutics is going to be part of your support system.
Okay. That's dope. So, Valencia, I definitely want to plug in with you. I know you have an upcoming event coming up next month. You want to plug us in a little bit with that?
Oh, yes, I do. So on Saturday, November the 11th, we will be having our second annual SMASH Summit. And SMASH stands for Supporting Mental Health Advocacy and STEAM Through Hip Hop. So you should be like, woo, woo, that's awesome. So we are using hip hop as the vehicle to dive into conversations around mental health, and also using hip hop as a way to push and address the racial and gender gap in STEAM careers. So we're super excited about it and hope you all will come. We also know that we love students, so that is the promo code. So if you are a student at any level, students may attend for free as long as you put in "We love students," all capital letters.
All right. So I just got a final question, right? We have our listeners in the STEM Plug podcast, and we also have our audience here at the first official EduVibe Fest. So everyone in the audience, people that will be listening, what is some advice that you will want them to kind of take about their mental health after hearing everything that you had to say today? And y'all can kind of piggy off each other with that.
I think that, honestly, I just want to normalize mental health. I want to normalize going to therapy, normalize just talking and being truly vulnerable with one another, because we are all going through something, and mental health falls into every aspect of our lives. So find ways to separate yourself from social media, to unplug, to go outside, find your people, your favorite song, and it is okay to find a therapist that you may need.
And as well, a couple words, just don't give up. And I know what Ms. V just said about social media as well. Like, social media is a very powerful tool. It can do a lot of great things for us, but it can put us in a lot of spaces as well that we don't need to be in. Within those spaces, be careful. When you listen, when you hear things, be careful, because a lot of times it's a manipulation tool, or it's a tool just to bring you down, and we may not even know it. So when you hear things, no different if we're interacting on a daily basis and we're talking, but social media is like times 100 when it comes to interacting. So just be careful, have a ear to listen to the positive things, but stay away from the things that is not you. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. Just stay away from things that is not you. So just be careful and don't give up. That's what I would say.
Well, Valencia, Jay, I appreciate y'all plugging in. This is another episode of the STEM Plug Podcast. If you love conversations like this, make sure you subscribe to STEM Plug Podcast on YouTube. Check out STEM Plug. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Keep plugging in.